right, everyone, welcome. Thank you for tuning in. You've got me, the Dumble whose door is always open, Gandalf without the gray or the white because I'm all black. Your man captaining this enterprise. I am Left Eye E.G.O. And today we're joined with a special guest, Jason Sandberg of the comic Jupiter. All right, Mr. Sandberg, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's spring here in Minnesota. I got the window open, the birds are chirping, and I haven't had to mow the yard yet. It's that perfect part of spring. You get the benefit of the sunshine, but you don't have to do the yard work and chores yet. So I'm in a good space.
Nice, fantastic. It's right before things start to get hot, humid, and
Yep.
muggy. So, hey, take full advantage of it. But guys, again, we definitely have our special guest here. He's actually doing something about creating comics that actually are fantastic, and his Indiegogo is still up with about 18 days left
Mhm.
as we speak today. I actually contributed to that campaign as well. Go ahead.
Thank you. And if you're a Kickstarter person, there's also a Kickstarter campaign that's got about 30 days left on it,
Okay.
because some people prefer one platform over the other. So regardless, go take a look, and it's out there. And on Indiegogo, we passed the $5,000 milestone a week or so ago.
Fantastic.
So that means
Yeah.
everybody who backs is going to get this little memento Captain Kleinbottle fan club membership. And this Captain
Nice.
Kleinbottle guy, he is a character in the book. He's like a
Oh.
background character. And this is like a little fan club membership card that would have been floating around in this universe. So fun little PVC, 24-point PVC little memento here. That was our first stretch goal. So if you back Jupiter, you will get this stretch goal.
Awesome, guys. So there's something extra in it for you. Please back this man either on Indiegogo or Kickstarter, correct?
Yep.
Awesome. All right. So, guys, I just want to actually talk to this man about, his creative process, where he actually got to start with comics and all the like. So, I'll just start from the beginning. I know you've been making your rounds last few weeks with everyone else. So again,
I've been talking to so many people, and like you, they've been great. And so far, believe it or not, I'm not running on fumes yet. I don't have an
really?
empty tank yet. Yeah. So
Okay.
maybe I was made to do this, or maybe I'm just having too much fun. I don't know, but yeah, hit me up. I will answer any question you got, even if I've already answered it 10 times.
Cool.
That's part of making the rounds.
Okay, great. I was like, oh man, I really don't want to ask repetitive questions, but I want everyone else to get to know you like I've seen on the interviews too. But so let's just start from the very, very beginning. What initially drew you, pun intended, to comics? Like, where was the start for you?
So back in 1977, I was a youngster, and my grandmother, we'd visit my grandparents on the weekends, and it was a Saturday night. My grandmother said, "Hey, get in the car. We're going to go to the drugstore." We drove to this downtown, went to this pharmacy, and it was Saturday night. But she picked up the Sunday paper, and to me, it was like a magic trick. Like my grandmother's got this magic trick. She knows how to get newspapers from the future, right? And now, granted, it was probably the Sunday early edition. But to
Okay.
me at the time, I'm like, oh, this is so wild, And it was kind of like a magical moment, right? And she goes, go pick out a comic book. And now I had seen Spider-Man and Batman on TV, but I had never. Maybe there was like old comic book floating around in the basement at my grandparents' house, but I had never picked one out. So I go to the little
Okay.
spinner rack, and spinner racks were so great. But I
remember those two.
I pick out Captain America 214 by Jack Kirby, right?
Oh wow.
Now I open it up. And so I buy it, it jumps out at me. I buy it, get home, and when I open it up, it just pops off the page, right? And it's like this magic trick. So all visual art is an optical illusion, where the artist is creating a 3D space and volume on a 2D surface. So everybody understands art is, by definition, an optical illusion. But Jack Kirby, it pops off the page, and it had energy. It just had this energy in that Kirby crackle, and I was just mystified. It was like a magic trick, right? So that sparked a love of comic books and of Jack Kirby. So every time I would have extra lunch money or whatever, I'd be like, oh, I gotta go get a comic book. So I was grabbing everything I could find. And then flash forward to 1983. Go to the comic book shop. There was a chain in Minnesota called Schindler's, and they would sell tobacco, porn, out-of-state magazines and comic books, right? And
Okay.
so this was back before like the internet and stuff like that. So if you were a transplant, so the Twin Cities, major metropolitan area. So if you were, say you were like a German businessman and you
Okay.
came to work in Minnesota, you maybe brought your family, but you wanted a taste of your home, they would bring in German newspapers, German magazines.
Okay.
Same thing with Asian countries, right? So that
Right.
was kind of their niche because you had that little piece of home, and obviously they'd bring in like Chicago newspapers and stuff like that. So that was their niche: the porn, the tobacco, and the comic books. So I would go on obviously for the comic books. So 1983, I see this comic book on the shelf, and I'm like, is that Dr. Solar Man of the Atom? Because we had looked through the Overstreet guide, and I remember seeing these pictures of the Dell comic books for
Okay.
Dr. Solar, right? And he had the visor, and
Okay.
it was always like a painted cover. Never read
Okay.
any of them, but I kind of knew what it was. So I'm
Okay.
like, what the heck is this? I pick it up, and it's Nexus #2 by Mike Baron and Steve Rude, right? And I
Wow.
open it up again, the same kind of thing where I'm like, the artwork is amazing. It's better than anything being produced by Marvel and DC.
Okay.
The writing had more ideas. The writing was better. The paper was better. The coloring was better. And I'm like, this is
Yeah.
amazing. And that moment was my initiation into indie comic books,
Okay.
where because Marvel and DC, they had in the Silver and Bronze Age, Marvel and DC had mastered the mainstream comic book in terms of the cliffhangers
Mm,
and the 2-issue story arcs, and the
okay.
artwork had gotten so much better, and they had built these universes where you could play with it, but there wasn't too much crowding and there wasn't too much retconning. But
Okay.
that was the moment where suddenly the indies opened up to me. So I started
Okay.
reading Zot, Dreadstar, Cerebus, ElfQuest, everything that was indie.
Wow.
I still kept reading Marvel, still love like
Okay.
Sal Buscema, John Byrne, but
Okay.
that's where I was like, really getting into the indie comics, and
Okay.
that's really where I immersed myself in, and it became a lifelong passion.
Well, I mean, what stood out so much for you from indie? I know that you said that they'd kind of master the 2D arcs, their 2-issue arcs and everything,
Mhm.
but what was it specifically more about indies that said, "Hey, I want to jump right into this and
Mhm.
read as much as I can"?
So by and large, the indie comic books in the 1980s, what
Mhm.
you had veteran mainstream comic book artists like
Okay.
Howard Chaykin,
Okay.
and so forth, and even Neil Adams and even Jack Kirby. Jack Kirby did Captain Victory and Silver Star and so forth. So what you had in the mid and early 80s was you had professional level creators who
Mhm.
suddenly, either through the Eclipse imprint or deals with First Epic and First Pacific and so forth, and
Okay.
Eclipse, had the opportunity to creator owned work. And
Okay.
now, by and large, at any given time, there's always some people who are really excellent in their field and so forth. But in that
Mhm.
mid 80s, it was great because you had they didn't have the monthly deadline. They maybe had like a bi-monthly
Okay.
deadline. They could lavish more
Okay.
attention on the artwork and stuff like Jim Starlin's Dreadstar. That looked better than any of the stuff he did on like Marvel 2-in-1 or
Really?
anything is right. Yeah. So there's so
Okay.
if you like Jim Starlin, check out
Mhm.
Dreadstar. It's a series that
Okay.
he did for like 30 issues in the 80s. It is fantastic. It's better than Star Wars, and people might get mad at me for
Wow.
saying that, but it's legit. It's legit. It's great.
Okay.
So the quality of the work, the individual vision and so forth, and the fact that because these indie comic books were their own world,
Mhm.
they could tell self-contained stories, and they could have a
Mm,
beginning and an end, right? So
okay.
that
Yeah.
lend itself to more the graphic novel idea, where I'm going to tell you a story versus the art of I'm going to trick you into coming back each month. Now, the
Okay.
wonderful thing about mainstream comics, when they're done right, is it is a magic
Mhm.
trick. It's a high wire act of I'm gonna give you a satisfying story, but I'm gonna do something that's gonna make you want to come back next month. And that's why
Okay.
comic books are different than novels or movies or so forth, because of that cliffhanger and the
Okay.
the, the page turns and so forth. So yeah, I think that's why those indie comics were so great, especially back
Wow.
back then, right?
Okay. All right. Wow. That was actually that's a really good answer for that one. Okay. I mean, so yeah, I guess now that you decided to want to make independent comics, I typically I hear people say something like, as an artist, I want to work for the big two of DC and Marvel, and then go independent. What made you? I know that you kind of explained why you liked indies over the big two once you started reading them, but what about it specifically was made you want to say, hey, even after I graduate, I still want to go the independent route instead of trying to establish myself with the big two?
One thing was that I was aware of how creators were being treated in the
Okay.
80s and in the early 90s and so
Oh,
forth. I was aware of
okay.
that, and
Okay.
I definitely did not want to put myself in that kind of situation where I was a freelancer and I had to deal with that, right? Then the
Okay.
second thing is I'm going to be candid and say that like my art style, my art style 30 years ago, I probably wasn't professional level, right? Now
Got
I
it.
I do
Okay.
I do believe I am now, right? I do believe I'm now,
Definitely.
but I probably wasn't sophisticated enough
Okay.
and quote unquote commercial enough in the
Hmm.
early to mid '90s to get a job at the big two. Now,
Okay.
granted, it would have been fun to have done it. I probably wouldn't
Yeah.
have. I would probably wouldn't have done it as a career, knowing how unstable it is, right?
Right.
But that's probably that. Those are contributing factors into why I was more into the indie space.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. That makes sense. And I guess that kind of takes us to your baby here, which we've got Jupiter.
Yeah.
Again, guys, it's got 18 days left on Indiegogo and on Kickstarter. This art looks really great. It's got that kind of that old school. I don't know what kind of art I would say it is, like maybe 70s or 80s feel to it.
Hey, do
But
me a favor. Would you hit
yeah.
refresh? Because I think we've got a
Oh,
few more
my bad.
backers. I think we might be a little bit higher there. What are we at now?
Whoa!
There
Wow.
we
Good
go. All
call.
right.
Nice. All
We're
right.
plugging away. We're
This man
plugging
is
away. We're chipping away.
this man is 1,050% over the goal here that he had. This is fantastic news, guys. You can do this, independent creators. It can be done. All
Yeah.
right. So yeah, like I said, I really like the art and some of the detail that we've got here. But while we're checking this out, let me double check here. So I mean, for all of this, I know that you said that you created Jupiter a few years after you graduated college.
Mhm.
So what was your process like going from I have an idea that I want to put out to actually coming out with a finished product that winds up being Jupiter?
Mhm. Do you mean like the '90s version that was the black and white indie, or
Oh,
this current iteration, or?
take us through both. I mean,
Okay.
take us through the evolution of all of that.
So I'm at the advantage of I'm the writer artist, so I can basically
Okay.
do whatever whatever I want, and I'm only waiting on myself, right?
Okay.
So back in the '90s, what I did was when I was determined I was going to give it a shot as an indie. This was the time where like Yummy Fur and 8 Ball were doing pretty well, and so
Okay.
I was probably a few years too late to get in on that popularity. But that was the stuff that
Okay.
I was going for were those indie black and whites and
Okay.
and so forth. So I would basically I would always do like a main story and then like a short story, and there was continuity between the issues and so forth. But basically, I would script it out. I would thumbnail it on a page to get the
Okay.
pacing down, and then I would go ahead and draw it out, and then I was working pen and ink back then, and I would basically work on the issue, and then before I started publishing Jupiter in the late '90s, I had like the first 3 issues done, so I
Wow.
didn't have to worry about deadlines and so forth. And it ran 9 issues. It was
Okay.
distributed through Diamond. Diamond liked it a lot.
Wow.
They said good
Okay.
things about it. They tried to help me out, but it was a very unique book that was probably going out in the market during a very skittish time.
Okay.
And we Diamond would work with me to send out promo packs to. We'd say, hey, let's send 100 copies of Jupiter to the 100 stores that sell the most, like 8 Ball, or let's
Okay.
send 100 copies to the top 100 stores that sell Cerebus, and try to like move the needle. And
Okay.
with Jupiter, those 9 issues, the sales never went down, but
Okay.
they never went up. Like no matter what we did,
Okay.
we couldn't move the needle. And so I was like, hey, I'm getting mixed messages from the retailers. On the one
Okay.
hand, the people that are buying it love it, but I can't get anyone else to take a look at it. So I had to kind of hit
Okay.
pause on it. It was a
Mhm.
difficult decision, but
Yeah.
when you're in your 20s, there's certain things you can only do in your 20s, right? And typically that's, you know what I mean? There's
Yeah.
and sometimes it's a career thing, sometimes it's your first
Mhm.
mortgage or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's certain things you have to get started. Now, when you get into your 30s and 40s, 50s and 60s,
Mhm.
then you've got more time to try other things. But
Okay.
but when you're in your 20s, the
Mhm.
decisions you make in your 20s, they're big decisions, and the
Okay.
opportunities you have in your 20s, they're big ones, right? You
Right.
cannot be 45 and say, I wish I could go back and be 20 and get my first mortgage or start saving for retirement, all that kind of stuff, right? So
Yeah.
I hate to sound like an old guy, but
Nah,
it's the truth. It's the truth.
it is.
So take, for those of you out there, if you're in your 20s or early 30s, think very carefully about how you're spending your time, because you can't
Yeah.
get these years back. Now, once you're on a career path, and
Mhm.
you found a career or a job, and you're excelling at it, you're getting more money, you've got a
Mhm.
reputation, you've got more financial stability, not worried about getting fired, then you've got extra money, you've got extra time, and you can experiment
Right.
and do something like I'm doing right now. um,
Wow.
so then flash forward to 2019, and I've become aware of the crowdfunding model, and I'm like, this
Oh,
is fantastic, because it's more direct than the direct market. I'm not trying to get past
okay.
some retailers to get in front of readers. And then
Okay.
the other thing is that I'm going to be able, just there's no deadline, right? There's no
Right.
I can work on this book for as long as I need to
Mhm.
work on it to get it the way I want it to
Right.
be. And then
Yeah.
and again, with Jupiter, it is 95% done. I'm just doing tune-up art during the campaign. So if you back
Okay.
Jupiter, once the main campaign's done, it's going to be going to the printer, and I ought to be fulfilling in around 4th of July. The
Awesome.
Kickstarter is going to go a couple more days, but regardless, you're going to get this book this summer. You're not going to be waiting 9 months or a
Great.
year for this, right? Um,
Fantastic.
and I've got 8 pages that I've inked of the next one, and I've got like 20 issues of story, like all kind of planned
Wow.
out. So I encourage people to hop on this train, because it's going to keep going, and it's going to be quite the ride.
Nice. Okay. Well, so I guess the other question is, while you've been creating, what's been the most exciting part of, creating your own comic? I know that, when you're trying to do the crowdfunding and you're trying to get it done by your own deadline, you might get bogged down, but, what's exciting about the whole creative process for you?
I think the most exciting so I think the most fun I had was when I got to animate portions of the book to do the trailers.
I saw that. That was really
Because
cool.
because while doing the book was fun.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I grew up watching like the Herculoids and Thundar the Barbarian, right? And
Yeah.
and
That's
so we
awesome.
we all we all sit there watching cartoons, and we're like, oh, that's so cool. I think I know how they did that. I wish I could do that, right? But then
Right.
you've got school, you got everything, and so I could never find an excuse to learn animation. Now
Oh,
my cousin does animation, understands animation, but
okay.
I didn't have the excuse. So as I was doing Jupiter, and I was getting the book to this like 90% complete point, back late summer, early fall of 2022, I said, you know
Yeah.
what? I finally have an excuse to learn how to do animation. And I had
Okay.
so much fun. I made about 10 different little 10 or 20-second promo clips for
Yeah.
Jupiter using artwork from the book. That was a lot of fun. And then the other fun
Awesome.
thing has been meeting people like yourself and being on
Mhm.
live streams and meeting. So there's a lot of YouTube channels that I've been watching for years. I've been in the
Mhm.
chat, but it's been fun to kind of climb up out of the chat, be on the
Yeah.
panels, and meet people and talk to them and so forth. So that's been equally fun. So all
That's
around, and
awesome.
then the other fun thing is that the book funded. So
Yeah. Yeah.
initially, right, because no matter what, it's like, oh man, I don't know what's going to happen here. I'm going to look like an idiot, like everything. Well, maybe I still look like an idiot, but that's been fun to see that it's connecting with people, and I can't wait for them to get their hands on it. And I'm looking
Awesome.
forward to seeing how many more hands we can get this into.
Great. Great. I mean, was it actually hard trying to learn the animation, or was it just following prompts they gave you?
So they my method was I blocked out like 2 weekends where I
Okay.
basically said, okay, this is my job. Like, lock the door, put on classical music, and watch the tutorials and learn.
Oh.
And let me tell you, there was points where I was like banging my head like, ah, and there's points where I say, okay, damn it, stop, I'm gonna go for a walk, I can't, I'm like, oh, and then it gets easier, and then it gets easier, and then it gets easier, and then it makes
Hmm.
sense, and then it makes sense, and
Okay.
then you remember things, and then so it just like any kind of skill building, and just I'm gonna make a general statement.
Yeah.
um we live in an amazing time right now where you can go on YouTube and you can find a tutorial, right? So
Yeah.
now is the time. If there was a skill you wanted to learn, or there's a skill you encounter, we live, I mean, there's disadvantages to modernity, and there's things that happen in the news that are upsetting, but take advantage of the fact that we've got these resources, and you've got the opportunity to do skill building. Now, you may not, and it could be something for your job, or it could be a
Okay.
career change, or it could be something around the house, or it could be something you've always wanted to do. Take
Yeah.
advantage of the fact that we can pick up additional skills, and be patient with yourself.
Okay.
Give yourself time to make mistakes. Give yourself time to, like, try it, get frustrated, put it down, pick it back up, try again, take notes, swear at yourself, tell yourself you're an idiot, but tell yourself to keep trying, and learn, right? Because that's, I mean, that's that, whether it's an infant or whether it's someone my age, you have to be persistent until you have those little breakthroughs, and you make those little connections, and
Okay.
suddenly, boom, you've got a new skill. And ideally, that should be a lifelong goal for everybody.
Oh, okay. All right. So I mean, so with trying to, learn from animation, doing the inking, the writing, the dialogue, the issues, and having a family, how do you keep that balance of being a creative but being, a parent, taking the kids out,
Yep.
balancing all that life in general?
So what happens is basically, like, kids typically they're either in bed, or they're
Okay.
self-sufficient by about 8 o'clock at night. And
Hmm.
then
Okay.
half the time my wife's just exhausted from her job, so she just wants to lounge around or whatever. Sometimes she'll hang out in the studio here with me while I'm doing stuff. But basically, from 8 o'clock till, say, midnight, I'm wide open. And
Okay.
so all day long, I'm doing my commitments at work. I'm doing my commitments with the family stuff. And then once it's, say, 8 o'clock, boom, I'm wide open. And sometimes I have to go take a walk to kind of oxygenate my brain, wake myself up. Sometimes I've got to take a little Pepsi Zero and have some Pepsi Zero, right?
Yeah.
But but the point is you just gotta find those blocks of time, right? And
Yeah.
there's a couple pages in Jupiter that I actually inked at work. Like,
Okay.
in my desk at work, I had a little tray, and it had
Mhm.
whatever pages I was working on. It'd be, okay, it's lunchtime, I'm gonna pull it out, grab the
Wow.
acid-free pen, and I'd start inking. So I put a do not
Wow.
disturb sign on my door, and then just did that on my lunch break, right? So
Wow.
sometimes you can do things where you just have a block of time, you can fill it. Then other
Okay.
things, you need to have like a good solid 4 hours, and then obviously then there's you can usually find 6 or so hours on the weekend, and plug
It's not
away.
bad at all. All right. I'm definitely going to take that into consideration at some point if I start making my own comics as well. So, I mean, just to kind of break the monotony of things, you said you've been at this for a while, kind of established yourself and had some free time on there as well. But I wanted to actually ask you, what's been your most expensive nerdy purchase? It could be tickets to a comic convention, a collectible, anything. Like, what has
Yep.
been your most expensive nerdy purchase? Oh, you have it with you.
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
Ooh, ooh, ooh. So I mentioned
Whoa.
Nexus number 2 earlier, right? Back in the
Yeah.
1993. This is a jumbo size hardcover Nexus book that Mike Baer and
Wow.
Steve Rude did. It's newspaper sized, so I would say and it's signed. So this is probably the
And
most
it's signed?
yeah, it's signed. It's probably the
Whoa.
most expensive thing, and I don't want to open it up on camera because I'll bend the pages, but
That's fine.
this would,
Yeah.
and look at that thing. Whew.
That's
So this is
incredibly detailed too.
this yeah
Wow.
this has a place of honor in my studio here. So just
Wow.
amazing. So
That is amazing. Wow. Okay. I thought it was just gonna be, hey, I got a ticket to this convention. I know you're gonna I was like, oh, got it right here. That is
yeah,
awesome.
I have it there so I can look at it.
Okay.
And be like, that's the Mount Olympus that I'm aspiring to, is to do something that's as I mean, I'm aiming to try to do something that's of the quality and
Okay.
the longevity and the beauty and the goodness of Nexus by Mike Barron and Steve Root.
That's
That's the goal.
awesome. I look forward to the oversized jumbo Jupiter. So
Someday,
yeah,
someday.
hey, yeah, I interviewed that guy. I got the book right here to prove it. Anyway, I guess the other thing is I know that there are a lot of people that we probably consider them normies that don't normally read comics, but
Mhm.
might get interested in them. And I know that sometimes with the big two, it can be hard saying there's a place to start, or being worried that someone's going to push a thought or agenda on you,
Mhm.
or even just something that kind of could turn them off to the reader. I know that we have that. So how do you kind of more or less sell Jupiter to the normie or the
Mhm.
the casual comic book reader?
Sure. So what I would say is that Jupiter takes place the world of Jupiter doesn't have any superheroes when you encounter it. It's a clean slate. You
Oh,
don't know
okay.
you don't need to know any kind of history, anything like that. Now, within the world of Jupiter, there's no superheroes. There's superheroes inside the comic books in that world, and that plays
Okay.
part of the story. But it's a clean slate. It's a square one. So
Okay.
you get to start with these characters, and you get to follow what happens with the characters, and it won't and everything that you need to understand the story is in there. And
Okay.
I believe the artwork is accessible, and it's
Okay.
as well crafted as I can make it. And
Okay.
I think you're going to find things in there that are funny, things in there that are startling. There's mysteries, there's philosophy, but
Oh.
I don't lecture the audience.
Okay.
It's you won't feel like you're getting dragged to HR and getting scolded about anything or whatever. But I'll pose questions and so forth, and I try to be as so what's important about what's happening right now in the larger larger culture,
Mhm.
something that people I want people to consider.
Mhm.
Art has always been political to the extent that it deals with the polis, that we're social
Okay.
beings, right? And if you go back, one of the most important early works of literature was Antigone, the play Antigone. And
Yeah. Yeah.
that play is about the state can't make a rule. The state can't overrule the gods, right? So there's
Right.
the authority, and there's power, and there's rules, and there's traditions that supersede the state and are before the state. And just because you're the king of the state, you can't tell
Mhm.
me to do something, right? So that's the
Hmm.
core story of Antigone, and that's a political
Okay.
statement, right?
All right.
What and throughout art, there's been throughout great art, there's been
Okay.
politics, because we're social animals and so forth, right?
Right.
Now, what's happening now, or what's been happening the past decade or so, is that
Okay.
people have moved from the political to the polemic, meaning I'm not going to deal fair-handedly with a political issue or a political question. I'm going to write a polemic, which is going to be a derogatory ad hominem attack on a certain group of people.
Oh.
And I'm not going to use art to explore the dynamic between the individual and the individual and the
Wow.
state, the individual and God, the
Okay.
different nations and so forth, and the questions of colonialism, questions of imperialism. I'm not going to deal with those. I'm not going to deal with it. I'm going to make a statement saying that you can't vote for that person, or you're not
Okay.
allowed to vote for that person, or that
Okay.
person is categorically incorrect and intolerable, and they should be silenced and so forth. So
Huh.
that's a polemic. So if you
Okay.
look at the terms, so political, in a free society, everybody should be able to make a political statement. But
Okay.
in an authoritarian or a polemic environment, the statements are they're categorical, and you're not actually allowed to think, because I'm going to tell you what to think.
What to think?
Exactly.
Oh,
And
wow.
so
Okay.
John F. Kennedy said that in a free society, art is not a weapon, right? It's just part of the
Right.
culture. But
Right.
unfortunately, there's movements to politicize and to turn art into a weapon. We're going to take art into a weapon, and we're going to continue to push out content or art that is not political. It's a polemic, and it's telling you
Mm,
that you cannot these people over here, don't even listen to them. don't
Yeah.
they're irredeemable, as it were. They've got nothing to contribute, and so forth. And we're gonna basically exclude them from the discourse. Right now,
Right.
that should not be in a free society. No, that shouldn't be the case. It should be I'm gonna explore an idea, and I'm gonna do it artfully. Right now,
Okay.
people can deal with a political question without tact. They can deal with a political question clumsily. They can deal with it
Yeah.
and come to and they can deal with a political question and come to a conclusion that will bring about results contrary to what their intended results are. That's like
Yeah.
people are
Yeah.
fundamentally fallible, right? But
Right. Right.
but the problem is right now it's not political discourse, it's
Okay.
polemics. So that's my take on quote unquote the culture war and everything that's going on right now.
No, I actually appreciate that. I've never heard anyone, describe, I guess, the difference of art as politics versus art as a polemic. So, I mean, that's actually really good. Thank you for kind of explaining that and breaking that down, because that really does put things into perspective. And hey, it has been political, but these are polemics. There is a difference. Wow, I had not thought about that. Thank you. I appreciate that.
That's why I'm here, man. That's why I'm here.
Exactly. We need more of you. We need more of you. So I mean, that's pretty much the question that I really want to ask, and get to know about you, your art, and Jupiter as well. But what future projects do you have coming out, or any other streams or live streams that you'll be on anytime soon?
I pardon me. I'm going to continue to work on Jupiter.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm working on issue 2, and my goal is to get one or two of these out a year, and then
Okay.
if it does really well, I'll go
Hmm.
to part time at my day job,
Nice.
or even when and ideally my here's my retirement plan. My
Go right
retirement
ahead.
plan is I retire, and
Okay.
and I buy a bunch of cookbooks, and every morning I make my wife and myself a different omelet, like every day a different omelet,
Ooh.
and then we
Okay.
go for a walk and we do her gardening stuff, and then I go in the studio here and I make Jupiter. Right, that's my retirement plan.
Awesome.
Maybe travel a little bit, but so I want to
Okay.
continue to do this, and I will continue to do this. The frequency is going to be based upon how well it's received, but I'm going to
Okay.
continue to work on it. And then
Okay.
in terms of live streams, so what's going on right now is that
Hmm.
we hit the $5,000 stretch goal for this guy right here. I'm
Right.
currently I've currently got a new stretch goal going. It is
Legion of Memers.
the Legion of
Wow.
Memers.
Okay.
So I partnered with the Legion of Memers to make the next stretch goal. The next stretch goal is if
Cool.
Jupiter gets to $8,000 on Indiegogo plus Kickstarter. So
Okay.
both campaigns combined,
All right.
everybody's going to get an official sanctioned Legion of Memers license to meme. Okay, so it's going to be about this size, and
Awesome.
so if you encounter the meme police, if there's a
Okay.
meme war, if there's a meme checkpoint and they say, I need to check your memes, you just pull this out of your wallet or your purse and you say, listen. I'm clear to go. You don't need to stop me. I'm with the Legion of Memers, right? So I'm gonna
I'm
be
sorry.
I'm gonna be going on like the weekly hump. I'm gonna be going on Comics
Nice.
Division, the Legion of Memers show on Saturdays,
Great.
Comics Division, and I'm just gonna be going and 32 flavors of Nick Weiser. I'm going everywhere I can to
Wow.
show people that you need to back Jupiter, because not only is it 40 pages full color for $10. If we
Yes,
back
sir.
this properly and we get there, everybody's going to get the Captain Klein Bottle Fan Club membership card and an official license to meme.
Nice.
In China, Russia, the European Union, they're cracking down on
Hmm.
memers. They
Yeah.
authoritarians and totalitarians and dictators, they don't like people to laugh at them. This is
Right.
America, right?
Yeah.
We need to be able to laugh at those who are in positions of power, whether it be celebrities or whether it be
Yeah.
corporations or the government. So it
Agreed.
is critically important to the First Amendment that we have the license to meme here in America. So
Yes, sir.
I'm going to try and get
Love
this
it.
into many hands as I can.
Awesome. Awesome. Oh, just last follow-up question.
Yeah.
Do you know at what point you're going to be able to are you going to be going to any comic book conventions to show off Jupiter there as well?
Nothing planned at this point. That's in the
Okay.
future, but it's over the
Got it.
horizon. I can't tell when
Nice.
it's going to happen, but
No problem.
and then certainly when I after I fulfill the books
Okay.
on the campaign. I will be going to my LCS and I'll do a signing and stuff like that, but it'll probably be pretty low
That
key.
Great. Awesome. Okay. Fantastic. I look forward to hearing about it, seeing you on the comic book circuit as well. Guys, thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Sandberg. You as well. Thank you so much. Guys, go out and get Jupiter 1 on either Indiegogo or Kickstarter. For now, for Mr. Sandberg and E.G.O, we're out. See you guys.
Thank you.